Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be looking at Conrad Riker's book, Narcissistic Family Trap, Escaping the Abuse.
Okay.
Now, I know a lot of you guys are interested in figuring out these covert contracts that happen in relationships,
Right.
and how those have kind of played a role in shaping the power dynamics we see, in families and even in broader institutions.
Yeah.
While this book doesn't directly tackle those topics, it offers some really powerful tools for understanding manipulation,
Yeah.
hidden motive, and those unspoken agreements that can really kind of leave you feeling trapped.
You're right. The book doesn't explicitly cover societal institutions or historical shifts,
Right.
but the core principles it lays out, especially around power dynamics and manipulation,
Yeah.
are surprisingly relevant to understanding those larger systems. It's like
Okay.
having a new lens to examine how these patterns play out on a much grander scale.
Exactly. Riker himself is a survivor of some pretty intense family dynamics,
Yeah.
and he blends personal experience with years of research in this book.
And what I find fascinating is that he doesn't just focus on the abuser.
Right.
He really breaks down the roles everyone plays in these toxic family systems.
Oh, yeah.
Which can be a real aha moment for people trying to understand their own experiences.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Riker starts by explaining narcissism.
Right.
We're not just talking about someone who's a bit self-centered.
Right.
This is a whole other level.
Right, he dives into narcissistic personality disorder,
Okay.
which goes way beyond everyday selfishness.
Right.
Think of it as a constant need for admiration, a lack of empathy, and this inflated sense of self-importance.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. Underneath that confident facade
Yeah.
is a deep well of
So
insecurity.
they project this image of power and success, but they're terrified of vulnerability.
Exactly. And that fear drives their need to control and manipulate others.
Right.
They build this fragile house of cards, and any threat to that carefully constructed image can trigger some intense reaction.
Riker shares a story of Andrew, who was basically living to get his father's approval.
Right.
His dad was a successful businessman, and Andrew felt this immense pressure to live up to those expectations. Like his self-worth was on the line every single day.
That story really illustrates how these dynamics can warp someone's sense of self.
Yeah.
Andrew was trapped in a cycle of seeking validation that he could never truly receive,
Right.
constantly negotiating his worth based on his father's whims. You could say it was like an unspoken agreement, a covert contract he never signed up for but was forced to fulfill.
That's a great connection to the idea of covert contracts.
Yeah.
And speaking of those unspoken agreements, Riker goes into the different roles people play in these families.
Right.
The scapegoat, the golden child, the lost child. He uses a family as an example. The father is the narcissist, the mom enables him. The favored son is the golden child. The daughter is the scapegoat, bearing the brunt of the dysfunction.
Right. These roles show how a narcissist can control the whole family system. Everyone's got a part to play in their drama, and it's often unconscious. They might not even realize they're caught in this web.
And the scapegoat, they're the one who gets blamed for everything, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Taking the fall for the family's problem.
They become the target for the narcissist's frustrations, insecurities, and need to project blame. It's almost like they're absorbing the family's dysfunction, carrying the burden of responsibility that doesn't belong to them.
Riker shares some pretty intense stories about the scapegoat's experience.
Right.
It's really heartbreaking.
It is.
They often face emotional, sometimes even physical abuse, becoming an outlet for the narcissist's internal turmoil.
It really underscores the destructive nature of these dynamics.
Right.
It's not just about overt abuse, though Riker then dives into the sneakier manipulation tactics narcissists use to maintain control.
Yeah, he talks about gaslighting, triangulation, love bombing.
Yeah.
It's like a whole arsenal of psychological weapons designed to keep everyone off balance.
Right. He describes gaslighting as twisting someone's reality to make them doubt their own perceptions and memories.
He gives this chilling example of a parent telling their kid they're imagining things, even when the child knows something happened.
Right.
It's like they're being manipulated into agreeing to the narcissist's version of reality.
Exact, and it erodes the victim's confidence in their own judgment.
Right.
Then there's triangulation, where the narcissist pits people against each other to maintain their position of power.
Oh, like in that example with Anna.
Yeah.
Her mom would badmouth her sister, Beth, to her.
Right.
Then when Anna tried to talk to Beth about it, the mother would turn around and accuse Anna of being paranoid.
Classic triangulation. The narcissist thrives on creating drama and discord, playing everyone off against each other.
Wow.
And then you've got love bombing,
Oh, yeah.
showering someone with affection and attention to gain control later on.
It's like that initial positive experience masks a hidden agenda, an unspoken agreement where genuine affection is used as leverage for manipulation down the line.
Right. It can be incredibly deceptive because it often feels so good at first.
Right.
It's easy to get swept up in that whirlwind and miss those early warning signs.
So if you have the basic definition of narcissism, the roles people play, and these manipulative tactics.
Right.
What's clear is that these dynamics are all about power and control.
Absolutely. And understanding how those dynamics work is the first step to breaking free.
Riker spends a good amount of time talking about setting boundaries.
Yes.
It's like building a wall around yourself to protect your emotional space.
It's not easy, especially if you've been conditioned to prioritize the narcissist's needs above your own.
Right.
But setting boundaries is crucial for reclaiming your power and defining what you will and will not accept.
He talks about saying no without guilt, communicating your expectations clearly,
Right.
and enforcing consequences for boundary violations.
Right.
It's like rewriting that covert contract on your own terms.
Exactly. It's about taking back control and refusing to be manipulated.
Right.
It takes courage and resilience, but it's the path to healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that Riker delves into that I found particularly insightful is this concept of emotional incest.
Okay.
It's not something that you typically hear about.
Right.
But he argues that it's a subtle form of abuse that's common in narcissistic families.
Emotional incest.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but also a little apprehensive.
Sure.
What exactly does that mean?
Imagine a parent relying on their child for the emotional support
Okay.
that should be coming from their partner
Right.
or other adults.
Yeah.
They're essentially putting the child in the role of a surrogate spouse or therapist.
So instead of confiding in their partner or a friend, they burden their child with their adult problems and emotions.
Exactly.
That's heavy.
It is.
Wow.
Riker tells the story about a guy named John,
Okay.
whose mother died when he was a teenager. Instead of leaning on other adults for support,
Yeah.
John's father turned to him for comfort.
Wow, that's a huge emotional burden for a teenager to carry.
It is.
It's like they're being forced into this unspoken agreement to take care of their parents' emotional need, to become their confidant,
Right.
which is way beyond a healthy parent-child relationship.
Right. It's like an unspoken contract, an expectation that the child will fill this emotional void.
Yeah.
And the long-term effects can be devastating. These individuals often struggle with intimacy, setting boundaries, and forming healthy relationships as adults.
It makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
They've never had the chance to develop those skills in a safe and appropriate environment.
And it ties into this idea of identity that Riker explored.
Sure.
Children raised in narcissistic families often have a hard time figuring out who they are because they're constantly being molded to fit the narcissist's needs and expectations.
It's like they're living someone else's script instead of writing their own.
Riker uses this analogy of a bonsai tree.
Yeah, okay.
Those miniature trees that are carefully shaped and controlled.
Right. It's a perfect metaphor for how a narcissist tries to manipulate their children's development, pruning away anything that doesn't fit their ideal image.
That's a powerful image.
It is.
It's like they're stunting their child's natural growth, preventing them from blossoming into their full potential.
And it can have a profound impact on the child's self-esteem and sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
They may grow up feeling like they're never good enough, constantly striving to live up to these impossible expectations.
It's almost like they're trapped in a cycle of seeking approval and validation that they can never truly attain.
Right. And this is where understanding the origins of these patterns can be helpful.
Yeah.
Not to excuse the behavior,
Right.
but to see how it can be passed down through generations.
Riker talks about this concept of generational narcissism, where
Yeah.
these traits are inherited and repeated in families.
Yeah.
He even looks at examples like the British royal family.
He does.
And other high-profile dynasties where we see these patterns playing out on a grand scale. It's fascinating how these tendencies, the need for attention, the inability to handle criticism, the tendency to belittle others,
Right.
can persist across generations.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's playing their assigned roles, but on a much larger, more public stage.
It makes you wonder how much of our societal structures and institutions are influenced by these same dynamics.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It highlights how understanding these individual patterns of behavior can give us insights into larger social systems and how power is wielded.
Okay, so we've got this deeper understanding of narcissism now.
We do.
But what about practical advice?
Yeah.
How do you deal with a narcissist if you're stuck in one of these situations?
So that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And Riker offers some really solid strategies.
Okay.
He repeatedly emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries.
Right.
And he uses this great analogy.
Okay.
Think of boundaries like the walls of your house.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's about creating a safe space for yourself.
Yeah.
Protecting yourself from the narcissist's manipulations and intrusions.
Exactly. And he's clear that this isn't about trying to change the narcissist.
Right.
It's about protecting yourself.
Right.
Learning to say no without feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Clearly communicating your expectations.
Yeah.
And enforcing consequences when those boundaries are violated.
It's like taking back control of that unspoken contract.
Yes.
Setting the terms for how you're willing to engage.
Yes. He also talks about managing your own emotion.
Okay.
Because it's easy to get caught up in their drama
Right.
and feel responsible for their feelings.
Which is exactly what they want.
Right.
It's all part of the manipulation.
He suggests things like keeping a journal to track your progress and remind yourself of how far you've come.
Okay.
He even talks about meditation.
Right.
And therapy techniques like cognitive behavioral,
Right.
CBT,
Yeah.
and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Yeah, EMDR.
EMDR.
Yeah, I've heard EMDR can be really effective for processing trauma.
It can be. And of course, he stresses the importance of self-care.
Yeah.
Taking care of your own emotional well-being is crucial when dealing with a narcissist.
Right.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. So let's say you're setting boundaries and taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But the narcissist is still wreaking havoc.
Right.
What then? Are
Yeah.
you just supposed to endure it?
Riker doesn't sugarcoat it.
Okay.
Sometimes the only option is to distance yourself.
Okay.
He even talks about this technique called going gray rock, where you essentially become emotionally unresponsive to their provocations.
Going gray rock. That's a vivid image.
It is.
So instead of reacting to their drama,
Yeah.
you become like this boring, neutral presence they can't get a rise out of.
Exactly. It's a way of disengaging from their toxic,
Right.
protecting your own energy.
It's almost like becoming invisible to their manipulation.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
He even talks about cutting off contact completely in some cases.
Right,
It's
yeah.
a tough decision, but sometimes it's the only way to protect yourself from further abuse.
It's like finally breaking free from that unspoken agreement, that invisible chain that's been binding you to the narcissist.
And it can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming your life and surrounding yourself with people who treat you with respect and dignity.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
It's about choosing your own well-being over staying in a toxic situation.
Riker also delves into how narcissism impacts romantic relationships.
Okay.
He says narcissists often target empathetic and compassionate partners,
Right.
people they can easily manipulate.
He calls them empaths, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're drawn to people that they can exploit,
Yeah.
who will constantly validate them and cater to their needs.
And the empath, with their big heart,
Right.
often gets trapped thinking they can fix the narcissist.
Right.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Riker uses this brilliant quote: "You can't pour water into a cup that's already full."
It's so true.
It really is.
You can't force someone to change if they're not willing.
It's like trying to negotiate a fair contract with someone who's only interested in taking,
Right.
and has no intention of giving back.
It's a one-sided agreement,
Yeah.
and it leaves the empath feeling exhausted and depleted.
So what are the signs of narcissistic love?
Ah.
How do you know if you're falling into that trap?
Riker says it often starts with a whirlwind romance.
Okay.
Lots of attention and affection, almost like love bombing.
Right, right.
But over time, those red flags start to pop up.
Yeah.
The need for constant validation,
Yeah.
the jealousy, the possessiveness,
Right.
the attempts to isolate you from your friends and family.
It's like they're slowly tightening the grip on that unspoken contract,
Right.
making you more and more dependent on them while they give less and less in return.
Exactly. And once those patterns are established, it can be very difficult to break free.
So what can you do if you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist?
Well, Riker talks about recognizing those early warning signs and setting firm boundaries right from the start.
Right.
Don't be afraid to walk away if those boundaries are consistently violated.
He also emphasizes the importance of self-awareness,
Yes.
recognizing your own tendencies to be overly accommodating or to try to fix others can help you avoid these types of relationships altogether.
You've got to protect your own heart and well-being.
And it's not just romantic relationships that are affected.
Right.
Riker also talks about narcissism in the workplace.
He does.
He says narcissistic bosses can be super charming and charismatic at first.
Right.
But
There's often a dark side.
Yeah.
Beneath that charm is a deep need for control
Right.
and a tendency to take credit for other people's work.
he tells this story about a guy named Peter who worked for a narcissistic boss.
Right.
The boss was brilliant, but constantly belittled Peter and undermined his project.
Wow.
It's like he needed to keep everyone else feeling small to make himself feel big.
It's a classic example of how a narcissist can create a toxic work environment. They thrive on competition and fear.
So how do you survive working for a narcissistic boss?
Well,
Do you just have to keep your head down and hope for the best?
Riker offers a few strategies.
Okay.
Peter, in that example, started documenting his work meticulously
Okay.
and making sure he got credit for his contributions.
Right.
It's about protecting yourself and your accomplishment.
But it sounds like walking on eggshells.
It can be.
Yeah.
And Riker is clear that there are times when it's better to walk away.
Yeah.
If you're constantly feeling undervalued,
Right.
walking on eggshells around your boss,
Yeah.
or experiencing physical symptoms of stress,
Right.
it might be time to find a new job.
Your health and well-being are more important than any job.
Absolutely. He also gives advice for dealing with narcissistic coworkers.
Okay.
Maintaining professionalism,
Right.
setting clear boundaries,
Yeah.
and not getting sucked into their drama.
It's about recognizing that you can't control their behavior, but you can control your reaction.
Exact. And sometimes the best strategy is simply to disengage.
It's like opting out of that unspoken agreement,
Right.
refusing to play their game.
You have the right to protect your own energy and well-being.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It has.
It's amazing how understanding these dynamics of narcissism can help you see things in a whole new light.
It is.
Not just in family,
Right.
but in relationships and workplaces too.
It's about recognizing those patterns of manipulation and control wherever they appear.
And once you see them, you can't unsee them.
That's the power of knowledge.
Right.
It empowers you to make more informed choices
Right.
and create healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
I think Riker's book is a must-read for anyone trying to understand those hidden contracts in relationships
I agree.
and how those same dynamics might even be playing out in larger systems and institutions.
I completely agree.
It's full of valuable insights and practical strategy.
It is.
We've covered so much ground today.
We-
Is there anything else from the book you want to highlight before we wrap up?
You know, one thing that really struck me was Riker's emphasis on self-awareness. He argues that we all have narcissistic tendencies to some degree.
That's interesting. We tend to think of narcissism as something that only other people have.
Right, but he sees it as a spectrum, and we all fall somewhere on that line.
So even if we're not full-blown narcissists,
Right.
we all have the potential to engage in narcissistic behaviors.
Exactly. And the key to breaking free from those patterns is recognizing our own tendencies.
He talks about paying attention to those moments when we're seeking validation,
Yeah.
putting our own needs above others,
Right.
trying to control people.
He even challenges us to look at how those tendencies might be playing out in our own relationships and interactions.
That's a tough challenge,
It is.
but an important one.
Yes.
It's easy to point fingers, but it takes real courage to look inward.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions
Right.
and consciously choosing to behave in ways that align with our values.
It's such a powerful message.
It is.
It's not just about understanding narcissism.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to become more self-aware and make better choices in our own lives.
It really highlights the fact that we all have a responsibility to examine our own behavior
Right.
and make sure we're not perpetuating those harmful dynamics.
It's so easy to fall into those traps
It is.
without even realizing it.
Absolutely. Riker's book is ultimately a message of hope.
Yeah.
Believes we can break free from these patterns, heal from the wounds of the past,
Right.
and create a more loving and just world.
That's a message we could all use a little more of these days.
I agree.
Before we go, I just want to remind everyone that Narcissistic Family Trap, Escaping the Abuse is available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
It's a great book.
Yeah, it's a valuable resource for anyone who wants to understand these dynamics,
Right.
break free from toxic relationships,
Yeah.
and start creating healthier connections.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into narcissism.
My pleasure.
It's been a fascinating conversation, and I hope it's given you some valuable insights and tools to move forward.
It has.
Remember, you're not alone in this.
They're not.
There are resources available,
There are.
and there is a path to healing and creating a brighter future.
Absolutely.
Keep learning
Keep questioning.
and keep choosing to create a better world for yourself and everyone around you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.